Good evening. Welcome to the Haywood County Board of Commissioners meeting for May 18th, 2015. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we feel fortunate to live in a county that offers such scenic beauty, especially at this time of year. Give us, as commissioners, the wisdom and knowledge to make the best decisions for our county's future. Help us to improve the quality of life for all our citizens. Give our country's leaders the ability to inspire hope for our nation. Be with our armed forces at home and abroad. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. We're going to change things up a little bit tonight. I know there's several people here who came for the purpose of the presentation of the fiscal year 2015-16 annual budget. So prior to the public comment session, I'm going to ask our county manager, Ira Dove, to make that presentation, which will enable those who wish to speak to make more informed comments. So with that said, Ira.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, members of the public, thank you for being here tonight. I'd like to present to you the proposed budget for 2015-2016. Before I begin, I would like to say that the efforts in putting together this budget, there are a lot of people who have assisted me in the preparation of this particular material. A lot of people have worked very hard that are sitting here. I'd like to first mention a few of those folks who have done a lot of the work here. Ms. Davis and her staff have done a tremendous amount of work making sure that I had accurate information upon which to base my recommendations and decisions. Hundreds of hours of work by them in making sure that what we had what we needed so that I could make the decisions that I'm going to be presenting tonight. In addition, I know Ms. McClure helped, particularly when on April 23rd we decided to do a salary review. She pulled together a tremendous amount of information from the School of Government and other resources to try and begin that. I know that Mr. Teague helped with some of the demographic information. Mr. Francis helped with some of the information that you'll see in the PowerPoint tonight. And a lot of people assisted in this. In particular of note, like I say, on Ms. Davis's staff, Ms. Crawford, who serves as the internal auditor, did a lot of double checks on a lot of the salary information and so forth. So with that stated and the thank yous, I will present to you the recommended budget. To start with, I think if you're going to present a budget document represents a vision, and my hope is to have captured your vision and the vision that's set forth by this commission over time accurately. Among the things in that vision are an increased emphasis on such things as senior resources, an increased emphasis on such things as public safety, and an increased emphasis on such things as education. So I hope to have captured that. I know also fiscal responsibility is part of what you all have worked for in the last several years and have had to work with that and balance the interests of the taxpayers for quite a few years, and in times that would have been coming out of a recession. So I hope to show how we have captured those goals as well in the presenting of this material. We begin with the process itself. We've been working on this since December is when we first started working. So even though we are coming to the 15-16 fiscal year, this is not something that just happened overnight. We discussed such thing as capital. We discussed law enforcement, if you remember, back in December, and we discussed such things as security, such things as the need to put roofs on a building, and some of that was accomplished this year, and the fact that we had equipment that was worn out, and some of that was bought earlier this year. We also had a budget work session in February where we continued the conversation along the lines of what would be needed and set some goals, many of which were accomplished with this budget, and I'll talk about that a little later. We had a department head kickoff, and I have met with all of the different department heads, some of them many times, and had many conversations over their budget needs, and reviewed the lines in this book that you see several times to try and make sure that we accurately reflected what was needed. We had a work session with the school system and Haywood Community College. Demographics. I think it's always important if you're going to talk about putting together a budget for a county that you look at the demographics. Some of the demographics that you'll notice is post-retirees continue to be our biggest area of population growth. The number of children is growing too. We have, relative to the state, I think the state has about 14% people over 65 on average, and ours is closer to 24%. So we have about 1.5 times again, if you look at the census data, the number of retirees. That becomes important when you consider such issues and what kind of economy you're creating there, because quality of life becomes very important in the decisions you make, whether you have places like libraries, whether your rec department focuses on senior services. These kind of issues become important to people, and whether you offer senior services that other counties may not, like a Maple Leaf, an adult daycare. These become very important issues. The other thing you'll notice is that our economy is recovering. There's some small increases in private sector employment. There are building permits have increased, home sales are improving, and home values are up from those sales. Goals fixed by the budget. This budget does provide increased funding to the public schools. It provides a contingency, and I'll go over all these a little more in depth as we get through the presentation. This is kind of an overview. Provides a contingency to cover the expense of a charter school. We're going to have one starting in our community. Provides increased funding to the community college. Continues planning and begins construction of a new EMS and emergency management facility. Increases the salaries of Haywood County employees to make them more competitive. Provides adequate maintenance on the facilities owned by the county. Takes into account a review of the workforce and public safety areas, and fixes a temporary labor usage in detention. Reviews salaries and gave raises to the lowest paid workers first. If accepted, after this budget, all full-time employees with the county would make at least $9.69 an hour. That's what is recommended. Provides safe, convenient service in solid waste and complies with the regulations. Specific projects will include the Francis Farm remediation and upgrades. Maintains current levels of service to the public, including maintenance of current operation schedules. Begins planning, needs assessment, and subsequent construction of a new animal services facility. Maintains funding to community clubs. Maintains the wellness center and health benefits. Increases 401k contribution, and adds a 2% cost of living adjustment. Continues merit at 0 to 2, maintains the holiday and longevity pay, and maintains adequate contingency. I believe if you were to look back at the goals of the work session, there was a long list. I will admit to you that with the recommendation of this budget, one of the things that was requested I did not accomplish. I was not able to accomplish all of the things, other things on the list that I was given, and maintain the tax rate at the present level, and I'll go in more depth of that as to why. The proposed tax rate is increased to 56.61, and general fund expenditures proposed to increase by 387,995. So where does the money come from for Haywood County? Most of our money does come from ad valorem taxes. We do have other sources of revenue. You have local option sales taxes, permits and fees, intergovernmental, other taxes and licenses. A county budget is a mix of federal and state revenues, and it can be a very complicated mix at times. because a lot of that money comes in with a lot of restrictions on it. For example, I've used the example of WIC, but pretty much every dollar you're going to get from the federal government usually has a tagline on where it has to go, like subsidized child care, which is essentially pass-through money. Ad valorem property taxes. There was a projected growth, and again, these are projections. We think they're good projections based on what we've seen, but they are just projections. This is not dollars in hand yet. Projected growth in ad valorem tax base of approximately $963,683 without a tax raise. Increase in delinquent collections, particularly in motor vehicle taxes. North Carolina Tax and Tag, for all of its other comments, it is working in terms of collections. Prior year taxes must be paid before the tag issues. 1 cent on the tax rate is approximately going to be $714,000. Revenues, local sales, local option sales taxes are increasing. But a large portion of that's already earmarked for the public school capital, $2,674,527. A portion of the sales tax earmarked for community college capital, or $1,601,505. And for county projects, $8,567,955. So this reflects an increase in sales tax available for county use of $297,729 over last year. Here's a brief table projecting the history of sales tax. You'll notice that it's gone up and down, as low back in 2010, right under 10 million. We're not yet back at our historic highs, but we are on the upward swing. So why propose a tax increase, given this picture? Let's look at what county money we would have available to cover increased expenditures over last year. And I'm going to say, as I go through, we'll talk a little more about what we didn't do, because last year I forecast that we were kicking a lot of cans down the road and hope for a better day. Ad valorem taxes, $963,000, sales tax $297,000, unrestricted intergovernmental approximately $145,000, increase in sales and services. It'll give us a total new dollar picture of about $1,790,738 over last year. Where does the money go? Well, if you look at the school system, the amount of money would be up over last year to $15,235,279, what's proposed. The community colleges are up. The human services budget is a little bit up. Economic and physical development, transportation, public safety, central services, which is such things as IT, repair and maintenance in buildings and so forth. I'm going to cover all these in more depth, but I just wanted to get a good picture of this graph, because if you're looking at service debts and transfers, what you need to realize is a lot of that is also simply either where debt is held or personnel are held that are working in such areas as human services and public safety as well. So we'll talk about that a little more in depth later. But right here off of this graph, you can figure out pretty quickly where your money is going to go. Each functional area, and what we're going to do in this presentation is we've designed it such that people can see really quickly what we're planning to spend the money on for purposes of transparency. In addition, it is a $70 million budget. Much of the budget would be the same as last year. You have such things as we'll talk about, like inmate medical, and still have to pay the light bill and still have to pay people to do the cleaning of the courthouse and things like this. But there are some other areas, and we'll go over them. Trends across these areas. We kicked a lot of cans down the road in vehicles. We didn't buy as many vehicles as you would typically do if you were running a business the way you would need to. We did that because we needed to get by the lean years. Technology. We did some keeping up with technology. We did some not keeping up with technology over the years, and facility repair. We did some of this, but we didn't maintain to the level that really you would if you were doing this to try and keep from having to have serious problems. We did minimal maintenance over the time period. And we also, at the end of this, I'm going to talk about a salary review that was done. Education. It should be noted that last year, at this time when we were standing and doing our budget, we put the projection to education, but there was one figure, and that was out of the funding formula, we didn't know, and we didn't know exactly what the 10-day ADM would be. So what we had was a projection of what the 10-day ADM would be. Well, this year, one of the changes is that the 10-day ADM that we'll be using will be added to the charter school system. And we have guaranteed them that it would not be less than last year's 10-day ADM, that combination together. So there's a hold harmless for the schools in this budget, which means I can tell you that that increase that I'm saying of $292,890, you're going to spend, and you've agreed to do that in your vote. In addition, the community college is going to get $43,222. Now, to keep the functional areas together for purposes of people wanting to go back and look at this again and look at the green sections, the contingency on the charter schools, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that here, is over in the transfers area where it functionally belongs. But I'm going to talk about it here because what's happening with the opening of a charter school is you're going to have students, some of whom come out of the public schools. We already have some charter school students that are going to Buncombe. Some of those may return, and then you may have some homeschoolers get interested in coming to the charter schools, and you're going to be responsible, and you've already accepted this in that vote, to pay for these charter students. I'm recommending a $200,000 contingency on that because we can predict and we can, but there is no way to know exactly how many students are going to show up and be there till you get to August 10th. And so you're going to need to have enough money to cover a reasonable prediction of how many kids are going to come out of homeschool or come into that system the first time and hit that charter school, and you're going to need the funding. So you'll see that $200,000 a little later. And in green, these are increases, again, things that would draw on that $1.7 million I talked about. And these things in green, you've already promised the school system and the hold harmless on the charter school, so I'd recommend that that money be there. General government, anticipated increase in retiree health insurance coverage. Two philosophies on retiree health insurance coverage, two different ends of the spectrum. One philosophy is don't do anything for them. A lot of people follow that philosophy. The Haywood County philosophy has been, and if you look back at times when other counties were voting to end it, Haywood County was voting to increase it, that people come here and if they work, invest a career in Haywood County, you'll take care of them at the end of the day. That's been the philosophy to this point. And that philosophy will come this year. We'll need the $100,000. Elections are up due to an additional primary. We'll advise you that one thing this will not cover, this does not cover the election machines you're likely to need in a year or two. This does not cover some of the increased technology, this budget that you will need a little bit down the road. That's not in here, but the additional primary costs are in here. Real property appraisal, we're coming up on reval, $28,500 additional. Real property appraisal software and updates, $6,000, that's going to a couple of different companies. One is for some updates and maintenance of software that they have and are using, and one is to acquire software, more advanced software on how we do our real estate appraisals. It's in use in a number of counties. It's increased the accuracy of those appraisals and has decreased the amount of issues later with those appraisals in the other counties. It also increases a little bit the speed that the workers are able to do the job in case people need to go in front of the Board of E&R with a lot of stuff. Land records printer plotter wore out. You'd need to put a little additional money in there. And legal, over the years, has averaged about $213,000 a year for the last 5 years. We typically, last year I budgeted $67,000 less at about $104,000. Trimmed it down to the realm that it was pretty much not as realistic as it should have been. So that figure is taking an average and looking at a more realistic figure. Central services, county garage, up a little bit for replacement of tools. HVACC in Canton and Waynesville, those systems, I was told by Dale last year, probably wouldn't make it through this year. And I wouldn't want to bank, just based on those systems, based on that recommendation, is to replace both systems this year. Fines Creek main building and old gymnasium roof, $100,000. Went down and actually looked at this with Mr. Burris. We took a tour down there, and that roof appears to be in as bad a shape as you would have seen in the Pigeon community, just looking at it and talking about it. So my recommendation is there comes a point you have to either repair the buildings or not, or close them. And you're going to have damage if you don't repair that roof. Increased maintenance, vehicle garage, that's getting them a ventilation system in there. We're running a maintenance garage that needs a better, improving the ventilation and the lighting in there. Repairs increasing about $100,000. IT Chronos, this is your timekeeping system. This does not reflect the full cost of that replacement. What it reflects is the increase over what you're presently paying on maintenance. And then animal service software and technology. This is a request that has come in basically to help us better log what we're doing with the thousands of animals that go through and provide better data that may be able to help you reduce the amount of euthanasias if you can provide better data and look at what's really happening and get better big data pictures. It also should help us with getting pets that come in their home, and it also should help us with, in addition to those two things, getting possible grants when you need data. Our system is a little bit hard on those sectors. They also need a new vehicle. One, they drive several vehicles, but I'm recommending, after looking at them, one for replacement, which is a truck from 2004 with 167,000 miles on it. We have the remodeling of the sheriff's office. We did get a grant to do that remodeling. Down the road, there may come some increased IT needs in that facility that the county may need to pay attention to. Emergency management, we have a Ford Expedition that's been on the road since 2004. I understand some people may have a little curiosity about emergency management and these things, but if you realize just this weekend and what was covered on the front page of the Mountaineer, that's just one small piece. That's one search, and it had a sorrowful ending for the family. But the coordination of those kind of efforts takes something. And sometimes people need to drive very quickly to different scenes to cover things. Whether it was a gas leak we had on Main this year or several of these other items that emergency management has been involved in helping to work with. Let me back up. Public safety. Every time I sit it down, it advances. 10,000 calls. We have 5 ambulances that are greater than 140,000 miles and 2 that are 7 years old. We have an additional one that's in park. The engine is out at this point. Older vehicles are in need of more repairs. They spend more time not answering calls to your families. We are fortunate that 3 of the prior ambulances that were purchased have the ability to be remounted. What this means is you'll take the box off the back and put it off on a new system. That will save you a lot of money because you can do that for about $100,000 as opposed to buying a new ambulance between about $150,000 for a new one, and we're asking for put the money in the budget for one that has a bariatric lift. Going to tell you straight up now, if you do this, you're going to need to buy 2 more next year to get where you need to be. But when you start to balance priorities, I think if you can get the 3 in the pipeline this year and 2 next year, and then probably start on a rotation of just simply replacing 2 most years, you'll be just fine. And we're monitoring the use of temporary labor for future purposes, and continue to monitor that through today. I was actually having a conversation about that right before I came in here. Recommendation, public safety, temporary part-time into 4 full-time permanent detention deputies. That comes with a total cost of $192 by the time you have salaries and benefits, but I'll show you in a minute on the next slide. That's not what it would actually be additional cost. Replacement of 2 patrol vehicles and 1 EMS. We'll need to consider more at mid-year. Actually, these are additional things. Detention. Net cost to officers, 4 officers. If you take out the temporary labor that we're paying workers and overtime because we're actually running positions, as I'll run through in a minute, with part-time labor force, and the reduced cost of turnover being training and other supervisor things. If you look at the fact, and this is one thing that the public may want to know, one of the things that we did a lot at Social Services, we didn't ask for positions. We looked at where we were and moved people around. I remember taking secretaries and turning them into social workers to get our numbers straight, or it would be different people. I'd just take a vacancy and move it over to the social work field and then refill it. And that's what we've done here. There was a position that was an office assistant in Health and Human Services that I think is more needed in detention. So we'll move that over there. They need a van with equipment, and they had an increase. I'm recommending a little more money in the line item for inmate medical. So the green, again, is what you'd need additional over last year. The only purpose of this slide is if you take a real quick look across the bottom, you'll see that he's filling every shift with part-time labor as opposed to having somebody in there that's fully trained and ready to roll. And again, this talks about the minimum staffing. And this is minimal, light staffing with supervision. Quickly, while you're going to want the full-time versus part-time, you're going to get more commitment, better workforce. Typically, you're saving training dollars because number one, you're not getting the turnover and having to train the people, but number two, you're getting more hours out of the people that you trained. And they're also typically overall reduction in liability because you get people that stay there longer and have more experience in the position and can do it better. Real quick, rules governing the detention facility. I'll go back so people can read that slide a little bit. One real important thing, and I think that anybody who looks around is what happened in the mountains, we have to have people that are trained on doing their rounds. We have to have people that are trained on doing proper observation of inmates because stuff does happen in a detention facility. And those are keys, and keys why you want full-time professional long-term career staff doing this. Sheriff's Office vehicles, 54 vehicles, 11 spare and pool vehicles. 22 are over 5 years old, more than 120,000. 10 of these have more than 140,000 miles. And an additional 7 are going to turn that way in the next year. I'm recommending this year that you have 5 patrol vehicles. Last year, we recommended 2. If you will replace 5 vehicles roughly a year, you will start to get some of these out of the cycle. You're going to need 5 to 6. This year, I think 5 will get you because of the condition of your fleet. The actual, when you look at the vehicles, is what I've been told. I asked our garage to look at all the vehicles, give me the mileage, and talk to me about the condition and what needed to be replaced. So if you look at that from a terms of replacement. If you look at other county policies and you look at federal policies, they're going to be replacing vehicles long before this point in some cases. I'm just going to tell you, but I think some of them will look at the actual condition of the fleet, which is what I ask our garage director to do, look at the actual condition of the fleet. And so we're going to come up with and talk to the sheriff based on those written recommendations in my conversations with the sheriff. But again, you can't go back to knowing 2 vehicles like we did last year. Whoever's sitting there, you're going to need 5 to 7. Economic, we had an agreement with the Greater Chamber. Soil erosion relatively flat. This overall in the extension, that's a agricultural extension. They actually have a half less person because extension changed the budget. And my recommendation is that you not pick up the other half. You have other pressing needs in your county, and even if I was going to add a half a position, it would not be there until a lot of other needs took priority over. So this is relatively flat. Health and Human Services, you're still paying a little extra on NC Fast. You have an overall budget of $17 million, which is an increase of $609,000. Foster and care increases need about $77.5 county. Again, that's a mix of federal and state money. This is what you're going to need to match that increase that people are going to see in the budget, which is going to be larger. Technology increases. They have about 56 computers that are more than 9 years old over there that are going to need replacing. This is how we got through, the downtime. Now it's time for replacement here. Services they provided. If you'll notice that they provided Medicaid to over 11,900 people in your county. Part of this is due to changes in Medicaid and income family limits. We run the day clinic, the day health. You have to run a day health, or you have to have a daycare running in your county. The county is running one to make sure it works for adults, and that's an adult daycare. WIC, if you look at the several thousands of people that they serve through the year, then you can look at what kind of staff we have. Are we just flush with staff in those areas? Medicaid, they're providing those 11,000 cases with 23 dedicated people, and food and nutrition, over 10,000 people getting their services with about 18 workers. WIC is seeing those multiple thousands of people with 5.5, and one of those is an interpreter. So you see all of these different programs and how many people we actually have. This is not what I would call a completely flush staff where people are sitting around. Culture and recreation. Large number of people are still using these programs. If you read some of the stuff from the library, it's pretty obvious to me that not only do you have 250,000 visits, over 30,000 people have library cards, and they're using them. I mean, you have close to 500,000, it's like 460,000 or something. I saw her stats. How many books were checked out, and they keep a login of how many people use those computers, and it's pretty obvious, even though a lot of them are repeats, still those computers use 34,000. This is a very important service, the library. And so people say, okay, if it's so important, why is their budget going down? Well, again, that's looking at efficiency in your contracting, in your internet contracting. We do monitor these budgets. We do understand that this money comes from the taxpayers, and so we make sure that those contracts, when we're paying for services, are done right. And part of that, the big part of that decrease is changing out some of those contracts. It's not going to impact the hours the library is open. Transfers and non-governmental debt service. This has contingency and other items in it, special contingency for the charter schools. Contingency is $475,000. That's a recommended $175,000 increase to regular contingency. Several reasons for that. Number one, you've got some building projects that you might need to take a look at. Number two, as we get to in the salary review, there's one area that may need a little look. And number three, and this is the real big reason, if you look up at number two, the charter school contingency, that's my guess, but my strong suspicion is that entire contingency is going to get used, paying for new students. If it goes over it, you're going to need a little more of a safety net. But because there are so many unknowns, I do think you need to increase this contingency. New EMS management facility, estimated half-year debt service at $122,500. The other things that make up, because you'll notice that there's about $900,000, you'll see on another slide, and they have to do with, this is where we would put the cost of living raise to cost spread, and this is where your 401k is going to drop to cost spread among different departments. So in this area, that is. Now, one thing that you're not going to see here that people are interested in is the animal services. You're not going to see that here because what we are really researching hard and heavy to get is another USDA loan, and you would not need to pay any debt service in the next year on a USDA loan, and when that comes to materialize, it would be in the neighborhood of $200,000 if we get that USDA loan, which is why we would go that route. It's not going to be in the neighborhood of the kind of money that is driving these things. And I know I just need to, I think, say what is actually being represented here. What's actually being represented here is the stuff that you're seeing on these slides. Salary review. Again, this information did get out into the public a little bit, and I actually had a couple of people comment to me on this particular one on animal services officers, and they were not county employees. They actually volunteer a lot with the animal service folks. And when we looked at the salary review, part of the way we did this is I looked at multiple pieces of information, and these are attachments in the full budget book, but I wanted to give you a couple of examples here. One of the things that we would do, if you go on to the website for the School of Government, you can find that they do an annual salary survey from last year. A lot of this information that we took came straight off of that. Additionally, we know what we pay our people internally, so you have to look at that relative. Additionally, you can go onto the state human resources website and you can see the different grades that people have. Now in Haywood County, what we've done is over the years, we used the pay grades, and it was mostly the Office of State Personnel, but not in every area. And if you look at the changes that were made and are recommended to be made in these different salaries, a lot of that is adjusting law enforcement onto the state scale that they would be if they had been state law enforcement, so that relative to and detention relative to other positions that are on that state scale, they would be there. So it gives you a better pay grade. It doesn't mean we're going to pay them the same money as the state, but it does mean that if you have a pay grade of a certain level, like where you're showing custodian 2 at 53, if a law enforcement officer in the state pay grade would have come out at a 55, then that's where we would put them in our pay grade 2, and they would be adjusted accordingly proper relative to each other. So a lot of us did a lot of work in about a 3-week period of time, among everything else, to try and come up with this. But I take full responsibility for the end product and the monitoring of it to try and land you a pay grade system and changes that would meet. One of the things that you told me to do was to try and fix it. So I fix it relative to other counties, fix it relative to where we're going. And like I say, one person pointed at this and said, you know what? You need to pay some of these people, some of these positions like animal services officers, some of these positions like income maintenance workers, some of these positions need to be paid more. That person mentioned animal services officer, that we need to pay them more. So I looked back. The new salary depends, in order to meet this for some of the areas, it depends on a 2% cost of living. Now, over the years, even in the bad years, y'all held some faith with the employees and gave merit raises of 2%, up to 2% every year. And those were much appreciated. Prior to those years, if you looked at the years before, and when I say those years, I'm talking about budget year 2009 is when things started to go not right. And it started not at the beginning of the budget year, so there actually was a COLA in that budget, but or a cost of living raise in that budget, but it started to go bad around April, so that we wound up with furloughs and other things to adjust. But if you look at the 5 years before that, you had a 2% COLA, or a cost of living, in 2005, a 3% in 2006, a 4% in 2007, a 4% in 2008, and a 2.3% in 2009, and this was in addition to a 2% merit each of those years. And then the economy went bad, and no more cost of living raise to go with it. Why is a cost of living raise important? It brings up your floor. It brings up the floor minimum grading that you're going to do. And I would submit to you that if even a 1% cost of living raise had been done from 2010 till the present, that number would be higher than what I'm recommending on this pay grade scale. This pay grade scale was done by comparing us to other counties. I didn't try to match Buncombe place to place on this pay grade scale either. And why? Well, are you going to get a little turnover? Possibly, yes. People may want to move to an urban area. This pay grade scale was an attempt to be fair relative to our position to counties east and west to us, and relative to positions in the county, and relative positions, yes, of people that also work in the county, not on this pay scale. Based on the skill sets that it takes to do these different jobs, the certifications that it takes to do these different jobs. So this was a broader look at those things. The only areas that I would recommend that you might need to go much closer to the line in competing with a county like Buncombe are areas that you have very few people doing the job, and it could shut down an economic driver if you did this. There are some areas that I'm going to recommend, and you'll have to take this position by position because you have the relative pay scale, but I'll just put it out there. If you're talking some of the building areas, building inspections, you've only got one level 3 inspector, right? Other than your supervisor. You're not going to be able to do a lot of your stuff if that happens. You have environmental health. So you have a couple of key areas, and you may have a few others that it's not just looking at that, but it takes a very little bit of turnover to create a big bit of havoc in an industry in your county. Continuing on this salary review, I looked a lot at Buncombe County's 2012. They did an excellent study over, runs like 120 pages, over their turnover and the cost. And the training cost, 2 to 3% month salary for an experienced worker, and 5 to 6 for an inexperienced workers that are hired, and that's on average. So there are areas that would take a little more. But they're estimating, even if they can hire somebody fully experienced, they're losing 2 to 3 months worth of salary per position with that turnover. And they made a conscious decision to raise their salaries. Again, they have a bigger tax base. They have other capabilities and other resources to do that. And I am not recommending that you just simply adopt their pay schedule. That would be easy. I also don't know that it would be reasonable for your citizens to do so because our demographic is different. We have a larger elderly population and we have other demographics. I'm recommending simply that you consider looking at things that will bring more parity to some of the rates in the counties. Again, recommending that the minimum hourly rate to $9.69 for county employees. Why not minimum wage? I actually was asked that question once. Why not minimum wage? My answer is minimum wage is a good rate for people that have 0 skills, just graduated high school potentially. You can't live on it. I haven't hired anybody like that. Even in our food services positions, these people have multiple years of experience in those industries. They wouldn't be making minimum wage if they worked in minimum wage industries, some of these people. Now, a lot of people work in these industries or had to take jobs in these industries through a recession. But I'm going to recommend that if people are going to come here with years of experience and try and invest a career in making Haywood County a better place, that $9.69 is not a bad way to go for some of those. Across the board, 2% cost of living. We've discussed what happened in the years before the recession and how that was happened. This is part of the overall plan to bring up some of those salaries. For everyone that there's a big difference, where we'll get to a slide where I show you some specific hits. There are a lot more positions that are a few points off the mark, and we have some positions where we pay a little better than some of the counties to the west of us. So in those positions, I'm not recommending anything but this. 2% employer contribution to 401k, which is a 1% increase. Buncombe offers about 8. Other counties range from 0. Some of the counties do offer 0 to 2% seems to be pretty standard if they offer one. A number of counties have chosen to let this go. I think this is a draw for experienced workers. And just in my professional judgment, and folks have concurred with me on that. And once Haywood County offered a 5% unmatched 401k until 2009. That happened the same time the furlough. It went the same way. Compensate workers. One of my goals was to compensate based on regional standards and provide them with the tools and training to do their jobs. And again, clear discretion to compete in small departments critical to the economy. As part of the salary review, there are some different areas where there would be percentage increases beyond, and again, public safety is noted. And these are in areas, this is the cost of tax dollars. When you get down in some of these areas, it might be a little more than this, but that's another $457,000. With that, I'm going to go on to solid waste, because the other thing that we're standing up here asking about is an increase in an availability fee with this budget. It was a very busy year. Expanded management at the Wolf, upgrades at the Haywood Convenience Center, single stream recycling, completed the final phase of private-public partnership at the MRF. And yes, we began a lot of work at Francis Farm Landfill. And one of the things we did, and I'll show you all in a little bit, but this is a nice aerial view, and it will allow me to do some discussion of what's happening. You've basically got a sand cap on top of this, and as we'll go through the slides, you'll see a lot of notices of violations over the years related to this. Just last year, when I was talking about the budget, if you are to look around it, that ring around the road and just a little more is what the county owned. The county now owns to the road on this, and we also have bought a buffer, and I'll show you that on another slide. That buffer was necessary because we had methane gas and leachate, or underground water contaminants running off of our property and onto other properties. So we had to buy a lot of property to make sure that we owned everything where the pollution went to. That's one of the ways you do this. But let's talk about the history before we get to the other slide. Started in the 70s, closure letter in 95. 6 months later, we were supposed to start sampling. 97, exceedances of groundwater standards. Letter stated that 2000 got a notice of violation. Bottom line is, again, concentrations of toxics in the wells near the property boundary. We're showing that we had exceedances in the compounds that should have been out there. In that letter, please note, and this is 2000, 15 years ago, the current condition of the Francis Farm landfills in violation of the solid waste management rules and law and failure to adequately address the situation may subject Haywood County to enforcement, including administrative penalty of thousands of dollars a day. That's 15 years ago. One would think that our efforts in the last year was about time to fix it. Again, groundwater assessment submitted by the county to DENR. So 4 years later, we've submitted a report to them. DENR requested additional information after the submittal, requested additional time to submit a plan. Seemed like a reasonable strategy. Delay. And we did delay. Till we got this letter that said we had done nothing in 5 years, and where's our plan? I'm just going to put it out there like it is. We've already bought the property that would be the subjects of the lawsuits, so we have a little more freedom to talk. July 21st, more noted violations, not complying with the conditions of the permit, concentration of methane exceeded the LEL and the structure at the property boundary. But we were doing something. You know, they did the wells, they did the monitoring, they did the testing to make sure that people's water was okay. All that should be noted. That was occurring. So it's not like people were doing Absolutely nothing. And it's not like Diener is the big bad person and why are they picking on Haywood County when there may be other landfills that are out there that are having issues. The question is, we know of these problems. And I was told, fix it. I think that's your mentality. We don't want to leave problems laying around for another generation, years and years down the road. Fix it. It's not just Diener driving the train. When you've got chemicals and contamination that could leave your property, and you make a choice as a owner of that property to fix it, it comes with a price. But it is, I would submit to you, the right thing to do. But Diener is also noting and giving you the extra incentive that the gas and the water and the other things were happening. So there was an assessment period. We did some groundwater wells. We did some methane monitoring beginning in 2009 after Zivile. And last year we bought property. We bought a lot of property last year, pretty much what you see in white. We did this because you can see all of the wells surrounding the property. And there is water and there is methane that was leaving the property as it used to be. And I would submit to you that if this was just a methane problem, if groundwater contamination had not left it, then you would be with this property buffer and some good camp remediation and maybe a little more pumping on the methane, the eternal flame as we call it, that we light out there to keep the methane flaring. You might be okay. And we've spent a lot of money to do some cap maintenance and remediation. In fact, our tab in the last 5 years on all of these things, and this includes some of these property purchases that's come out of county coffers, is about $2.7 million. We've actually spent more than that, but we got over $1 million grant to help with that flaring system. And that's money that came a lot out of fund balance that we'd have to make sure that we replace. But if you look at, well, why is the groundwater a problem? The wells are there to cover the groundwater. Yeah, you've got Ratcliffe Cove Creek that kind of wraps around the boundary, and if you kind of look at the edge of the white stuff, particularly along the sides, you can kind of see that boundary is out there, and if you were to drive out by there, you would see this even better. And what you've got is you've got groundwater contamination that well, if you don't stop it, is going to be going into your creek more. So if you're going to do the right thing for generations to come, you're going to fix this. Plus, Diener says that once groundwater contamination leaves your property and heads towards a creek, and are the people that I have spoken with, then it's a horse of a different color, and you really have to take a much heavier level of remediation. So if you have engineering questions at the end of it, I think our engineer, I look back and spotted our engineer in the audience, in case I have misstated anything. And so that heavier level of remediation is what we're going to have to do as a community if we're going to do the right thing as a community. We started the right thing by purchasing properties. We paid a fair price for them. We didn't pay the high kind of prices you would have paid in a condemnation case. We didn't try and lowball these people. We paid a fair price for what we bought. And I would submit to you we saved a significant amount of money doing so. So we bought these buffer purchases. And now we have to talk about what's next. We bought dirt, and we also bought more dirt. The hauling and camp maintenance service contract will be placing that. I guess we actually bought service. The dirt came from the 209 project. We bought the placing of this onto our site and the hauling to it and the camp maintenance that will go along with that. We also had more stuff from 209 hauled to the site. This saved hundreds of thousands of dollars by acting quickly. Now, you can take two different tacks. We, in the last year, once you know that you're going to be remediating something, if you see an opportunity to grab a resource because of that, then you take advantage of it. And the resource opportunity we had was 209 construction would lead to this kind of thousands of cubic yards of earth that we would need to do the remediation, and we jumped on it. And did it come with a price? Yes, now, but it's much cheaper than it would be if you waited and tried to do this later. We continue to develop the assessment of corrective actions. That's going to be approved later. We're looking at permit modification and construction design over the next few years, and we're looking at beginning construction. White Oak landfill, if you want to know the solid waste budget, this is how it rolls out. We're projecting you're going to need to cover our obligations under that contract, $530,300. To run the convenience centers, $840,363. Hauling, $687,982. And we're out of these businesses. Material recovery facility, $155,100, $1,555,000. And the Francis Farm landfill, $2,152,912. Part of what's happening with the Francis Farm landfill is us saving that money, because you can't borrow money to do that kind of construction project. And sitting in the room with the people, with the maps and talking about what we need to do, as long as we make solid steps, my understanding is as long as we make solid steps to remediate the problem and do what we can to remediate the problem, then you will avoid the fines and you will be doing what is right by the future, what is generations. And I'm going to recommend that based on these numbers, and if you look at that number, a lot of this recommendation is directly related to that remediation, that the availability fee go up. I'm going to submit to you that after reviewing these numbers and the past numbers, that the availability fee was artificially low on the basic running and maintenance of this. And I'm going to say that because in the outsourcing of this, I looked at the condition of our facilities and our trucks and our fleet and our other things, and you would have needed a lot of money to capitalize this. And that if the availability fee would have been higher, that wouldn't have been needed to be done. They deferred in order to keep from raising the availability fee, and I know that it was the right decision at the time, because you do things in a down economy to get by, because you have to. But one of the things that I'm supposed to pledge on a budget is it's sustainable. And last year I said we're kicking a lot of cans down the road. What I'm presenting to you, I believe, is a sustainable budget. I do not believe if you kept going that it would be a sustainable budget. If you don't do this, you're not going to be able to remediate that problem, and that could lead to consequences for the county. And if you don't raise the availability fee, you're not going to be able to sustain what you need to cover this area. So looking at a summary of recommendations by fund, nearly $73 million for the general fund, special emergency telephone system 376, solid waste 6266987, the road districts, the fire districts, and some of them are recommended to go up. That came from their boards. They're asking to go up. Special revenue fund for Junaluska Sanitary District, law enforcement separation, Southwestern Child Development Fund. It should be noted on the Southwestern Child Development, that's all federal pass-through money, and we run a program and hand a grant off. So that figure is a moving target, and we won't fully know it till October when the feds pass their budgets. Internal service funds, but $3 million is a good placeholder historically. So if you went through and you added up the green items, this is approximately what you would have gotten on the larger ticket items to have about $1.8 million to meet larger ticket items. There are smaller ticket items not reflected in this, so this figure actually, I'm asking for a bigger increase in this over last year's budget. But when you start to look line by line at the different small item costs and fuel and things like that, I wanted you to have a good picture, and the public to have a good picture of what are the bigger ticket items. Because realistically, a lot of those nickel small items, it's kind of disingenuous to not budget properly. If you want to lower this budget, I would not recommend it. I can't sit here and I know nobody wants a tax increase. You really can't cut the public safety areas. You're going to have problems. Last year I sat here and said, I think we can go a year. This year I'm saying, no, I think if you don't buy your squad cars and your ambulances, you're going to have a problem. I'm not trying to ask for 10 vehicles now, although it would not be unreasonable, and some people would in this area. I'm saying get yourselves back on track. If you defer your maintenance on the Fines Creek Library, you could have structural problems. I think that's where you're at, and that could cost you more. If you defer your maintenance in these other areas. And a big driver of this, as you saw, over $1 million of this is a driver is on the personnel. Am I saying that if you don't do this, there's going to be a mass exodus? No, but you might get hit in some key areas if we don't do anything. You got hit pretty hard in the sheriff's office. There are some areas you don't have to have a mass exodus. An exodus of 2 is going to put you in a bind. And I can tell you that in those areas I'm going to need to do something. But I think if you're going to say we're going to do as a community what's right by our employees and what's reasonable by our employees, this is right and reasonable. When you look at what's happening around, this is going to, you said, fix the problem. I think, and I'm going to put the one caveat in there, and that I'm doing further study on the EMS area, because there's the way they get compensated and relative to others. But this is going to, this should fix the problem. This should help those areas and help the support you need in the different areas. Will it make you paid #1 in the region? No. Will it be a good faith effort on your part to say, you know what, we haven't done a cost of living adjustment in 6 years and we're going to do it, so please bear with us, we're with you? Yes. Will it give some areas like animal services a much more competitive salary compared to every other county? Some of those very down categories? Yes. That was the purpose. This is my best effort to fix the problem, and I thank you for your time and attention. I know it was long, but we covered a tremendous amount of ground.
How long have we been at 2008 levels in our funding, our budget for Haywood County?
Yes, since the downturn of the economy, that 2009 budget, when I showed the slide of what a consumer price index raise would be, or if I want to talk about what a consumer price index, we've been there since then. We've been below that. This is the first budget that's recommended to go above it. Even last year's recommended voted budget was below the levels of all those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 full budgets below that 2008 figures. So that's what happened with all those years. And again, I would say that's an excellent point. If you had simply put that consumer price index up against that 2008 budget, I would be recommending a $78 million plus budget. I'm recommending a $72 million budget, or close to 73. This is much less than even the inflation. And that's not saying, and what I did to come up with that figure is I took solid waste out of the mix, because I know that we've outsourced that, and I didn't want people to think, well, is that apples to apples? Yeah, that's apples to apples for all the services but solid waste. This would be much less than simply, but some people have proposed for federal government budgeting, by the way, is just simply look at the CPI, give them that much money and no more, and don't increase it. If we did that, $78 million, I'd go to the House. This would have been very easy to budget to get, because I didn't have many recommendations much above that.
We're going to have several more opportunities to discuss this, the next being a public hearing at 5:30 p.m. this Thursday, May 21st, in this room. So are there any questions anyone has or comments to Ira on the initial presentation of the budget?
Just appreciate the amount of work and the thoroughness of work you've done with the budget.
Okay.
One final note. People are wondering, and I got a question about, are we really quickly rushing to a public hearing? I wanted as much information, and I know that you like short presentations, and I took an hour because I want as much information out there in the public purview as possible for as long as possible. You're going to vote on this. It was released about a month before you're going to vote on it. If people can't make the meeting on May 21st, they can make the meeting on June 1st. If they can't make the meeting on June 1st and they want to drop by comments to our office, I'll put them in your record for June 1st. If they want to drop them by before June 15th, so there's a lot of chances to comment publicly on this. And we have an email called comments@haywoodnc.net. People can email us if they can't get out of their house. So thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I just misspoke earlier. I said 5:30 for the public hearing on the 21st. It's 5 o'clock.
It's 5 o'clock.
Any
Thank
other
you.
observations or questions?
One observation, I noticed that the sales tax is $1 million less than it was in 2008 this year, I think. I noticed that. So it's still not recovered. I mean, we're $1 million below 2008.
Yes.
So that was just an observation that kind of jumped out at me.
It is trending up, but has not gotten back to those levels in sales tax. This is true.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, if not, then thank you, Ira. The remaining items of new business will be renumbered 1, 2, and 3. We will return then to the original agenda and move to the public comment session. 3 people have requested to speak. First is Debbie King. If everyone would limit their comments to 3 minutes, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. I am Debbie King. I live in the Beaver Dam watershed neighborhood. Market factor is 130%. I, like many property owners in my neighborhood, received a 30% increase in the assessed value of my home in 2011. The new draft budget shows a property tax increase is on the horizon. We are told it is for salary increases. According to reports, you have over $1.8 million of new money in the budget. We hear that money is already gone. Reports also show that the sale of the hospital is scheduled to bring in $18 million, with approximately $7.5 million that will be available this summer. We hear that the county is saving us all this money, yet you still do not have enough, and you keep coming to the property owners for more and more and more. Now we are to believe that the only way that you can give the county employees a raise is to increase the property tax, and you want to increase that 4.58%. Becky Johnson has an article, and it's Haywood Commissioners Ponder Property Tax Hike to Give County Workers Raises, and it's in the Smoky Mountain News. She indicated that Jackson and Macon County gave their employees major raises in recent years. Jackson County hiked employee salaries over a 2-year period from 2008 to 2009. In 2008, the property tax rate in Jackson County was 0.2800. In 2015, 8 years later, that tax rate is the same. According to the article, Macon County hiked its employee salaries in 2013. Property tax rate in Macon from 2010 to 2015 was 0.2790. Compare that with Haywood County. We are at 0.5413. Reports show that our tax rate has increased approximately 8.9% from 2008 to 2015. Yet, there's no money for our county employees. Almost all of the surrounding counties have tax rates considerably less than Haywood County. Tax increases are almost always voted on during non-election years. You hope that we have a short memory. However, in 2011, half of us received property tax increases with your new neighborhood delineation program that you commissioners approved. Some of the increases were substantial due to the neighborhood rates. My research shows that the neighborhoods, for most of you sitting in the commissioner's seat, seem to fare pretty well. Before you this evening is this proposed rate. While 4.58 may not be a whole lot to you and those you surround yourself with, I can assure you it's a lot to many of the people in this county. I know people who have had or currently have their homes scheduled to be auctioned off on these courthouse steps. People are being taxed out of their homes. I do not object to giving the county employees a raise. I do object to a tax increase. The issue is there should be sufficient funds to take care of the raises, considering the enormous amounts of money that is already pouring into the county coffers. I respectfully encourage you to go back to the drawing board and find money in your budget for the county employees without a forced property tax increase. More money is not the answer. Thank you.
Johnny Curie.
Yes, my name is Johnny Curie. I'm a resident here in Haywood County, living in Waynesville, the town of Waynesville. I'm here to object to the timeline that you have presented regarding the public comments for this proposed budget. Correct me if I'm wrong, because the acoustics in this building are a little weird, and I heard some comments about when the public comment will be acceptable. When was that?
Public hearing is this Thursday at 5 o'clock p.m.
Thursday at 5 o'clock here? Okay, that is what I'm here to object to. You spent December, January, February, March, many, many months preparing this, and you're giving the public, today is Monday. I know this went out on the internet on Friday, but not a lot of people knew it was there. I suggest that you extend that timeline so that the public will have more time to review this budget. I would also ask that you make public employees available to the public without protest so that we can ask the questions we need to ask, get the answers that we need in order to comment intelligently regarding the budget. That would include Julie Davis, Ira Dove, his staff, the assistant county manager, people who could answer the questions for us as they come up. Yeah. And if you look at tonight, this presentation won't come out on television for a while. It will be after, I believe, the comment session is given, and people don't have access or time, because we're only going to have tonight, Tuesday and Wednesday to look at it after work, so that the public's time is limited in order to review this information. So I strongly suggest that you reconsider the timeline on this public comment session. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for clarification, we're taking comments tonight, so apparently people did understand that you could come out tonight. For those who need to come out again, Thursday is available. There will be a fourth opportunity on June 1st for any public comments and a public comment session at a regularly scheduled board meeting. There will be a fourth opportunity on June 15th at 5:30 at the open comment session. And so that's about a month of time, and that's a good bit of time with 4 opportunities for the public to address the board. I think that's sufficient. So, okay, next up is Dan. I'm having a little trouble reading this. I believe Massey. Is that right? He left? Okay. Okay. Is there anyone else present who would like to address the board? Okay. Then we'll go ahead and close the public comment session and move to constituent concerns. Bill, you have any?
I have none.
Kirk?
I don't have any.
Kevin?
No, I do appreciate the sheriff and their EMS this weekend with the tragedy that they discovered, and I also wanted to comment on our EMS. I know we have good EMS personnel. They have the proper training, and I think it really expedited. From the emails I read from the sheriff, he was well pleased with their service, and I want to thank him here tonight also.
Yeah, that was quite an operation. It was very, very near my house, and I drove by it on more than one occasion, several occasions, and it was a lot of effort expended and a lot of professionalism displayed. So I add my thanks to those as well. Michael? Nothing. Okay. And I don't see any administrative or agency reports tonight. There's no further adjustments to the agenda on my behalf. Does any commissioner have anything?
Mr. Chairman, I want to be sure about Thursday. I've heard 5:30. And it is 5.
It's 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, okay.
And one other thing, I think that our telecast of this meeting, it goes out tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, I believe.
Yeah,
So
it does.
it is on
Yes.
Tuesday night at 7 o'clock.
It does.
So it'll be out tomorrow, and it'll be almost a month with 3 additional opportunities between now and the adoption of the budget.
Is the proposed budget on the website yet?
Yes, Friday.
Okay.
So that exceeds a month that's been available to the public, which is at least as much as it was in prior years. So, okay, we'll move to the consent agenda. We've had the opportunity to review the May 4, 2015 regular meeting minutes. Are there any changes to those? Hearing none, we'll move to the second item, which is refunds, releases, amendments, and discoveries. Mr. Francis.
Good evening, Commissioners. Before you is the releases and refunds for the month of April. Nothing of any importance to report, just standard operating.
Okay. No issues?
No issues? Nope.
Any questions of David? All right, thank you. Okay, next up is Mike Matthews, our tax collector, with the tax collection update. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. Give you the update of our current tax collections as of April 30th. We are at 95.89%. It's about 0.62 up from where we were this time last year. And another update on that is we did a kind of mid-month. As of the 12th of May, we're at 96.11, so we're right on track to be where we want to be. Let's see. The delinquent collections it's showing we're at $297,000 down, thereabouts. That's a kind of a mixed number because, before there were the motor vehicles in it, and that's where that number changes every year. So it's kind of hard to base what that number is.
That would reflect a decrease of 21% from last year. Does your office have a plan in place to try to recoup this $300,000?
Like I said, it's kind of it's not really an apples to apples type number. I mean, those numbers change every year. Like next year, this number will be different than it was last year. So to compare what we're up and down on, but yeah, we have a lot of stuff in forced collections right now with some of the different things we're working on, attachments and that sort of thing. We've been pumping out a lot of those lately.
You had a chance to look at these numbers, Julie, at all? Did you have any observations?
The only thing that I have noticed is the current year taxes look like are coming in a little higher. Can you hear me?
Yeah, better
Maybe
now.
you can't hear me. But the prior year collections are down, like Mike just mentioned. There is one thing that we need to remember is that last year on the motor vehicle taxes, we were able to budget an extra 4 months. So you're going to see a little bit lower on those motor vehicle, even if it's the same collection percent. So Mike's right. There's a lot of things in the mix here.
Yeah. So is there a way to adjust that?
Yeah, there is. At the end of the year, we're going to really have a clear levy and collection percent of the levy, and it's going to be current year. That's what we really look at the end of the year. The prior year taxes, the more you collect of prior year taxes, the fewer taxes there are to collect in the future, which is one philosophy. I don't see that the receivables are necessarily down, but I think that the current year is about on track a little bit up, and then the prior year is just a little bit down. I mean, that's what we've seen. I think that's what we've seen since January. Isn't that correct?
Yeah. We've been right about this pace the whole time since January.
I'm sure you're starting to see the trend of habitual folks who don't
Yes.
pay their taxes.
Yes.
I'm sure you're seeing that. Yeah, do you have any ideas to address that moving forward?
We're addressing that now. We've got several people that their focus is just that. So we've
Okay.
been addressing it for
All right.
a while now, once we got fully staffed. So,
Okay, great. Any other questions anyone have, Mike? All right,
thank you.
Okay, next up is Julie Davis with a resolution for us.
Good evening. And you thought the budget presentation was long. Have you looked at the resolution I'm getting ready to present? This is a long one, and I certainly won't go through the whole thing. But this has to do with the refunding that we've been doing for the 2006 public school $18 million bond. And this is the refunding that we're expect to close in June. The resolution that I'm asking you to approve tonight is a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the County of Haywood, North Carolina, providing for the issuance of general obligation refunding bond series 215 of the County of Haywood, North Carolina, in a principal amount not to exceed $12 million. Also included with this is an escrow agreement where some of the funds will be housed until the first call date that we talked about at the last board meeting. I'd be glad to read any of this or
I don't know if it's necessary to read it. We've had several meetings about this, the refinancing, basically. Does the board want the resolution read, or?
I don't need it read.
Yeah, okay.
Talked about this pretty thoroughly last meeting.
We have,
too.
and the bank we're dealing with is TD Bank, and it's 1.78% interest, so we've got a really good interest rate on this particular refunding.
I think you said there was savings of 110,000?
110,000 per year for
year.
the next 10 years. Yeah, that's
So-
really
Yeah,
substantial.
that's, the schools can really use that, so that's good.
Okay,
Appreciate you doing it too, Julie. That's great.
indeed. Okay, the fifth item of the consent agenda is a series of 5 budget amendments, again, for Julie.
All right, the first budget amendment that I have for you is for $15,288. This is Health and Human Services Department. This is actually 4 separate grants, but they're all from the Haywood Healthcare Foundation. And the total is $15,288. They're $5,000 for adult health, $46.73 for dental clinic, Meals on Wheels $1,500, and adult daycare is $41.15.
Okay,
All right, the next budget amendment that I have is actually a transfer. This is North Carolina Department of Transportation money that's flowing through the county to go either to the Work First program at Health and Human Services or to Mountain Projects. The Mountain Projects has a need for more funding, and Health and Human Services doesn't have that need. They have funding from other sources. So we're transferring $8,000 of that funding to a line item to pay Mountain Projects.
okay,
And the next budget amendment is public assistance. What we're doing here is another transfer. We're transferring our crisis intervention money into a salaries line item because it's actually, the administration is the salaries that are going to cover this particular energy assistance program. And this, again, is grant money coming through the county.
okay.
The next one is Health and Human Services. Again, this is our Women, Infants, and Children program. It's $1,834, and it's to promote a nutrition program.
Questions there? Okay,
And in our public safety area, we have animal services. We have $2,100. Actually, we don't quite have 21, but by the end of the year, we'll expect to have $2,100 in contributions and donations to help cover some supplies for the animals at Animal Services.
Questions there? Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? If not, we'll entertain a motion that the consent agenda as presented be approved.
So move.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chip, maybe I can get you to weigh in a little bit. A bit of a red herring was tossed out earlier. One of the speakers were referring to the several millions of dollars that the county would receive from the sale of the hospital. And that's, as I understand it, of course, that's not something that can be applied to a budget for purposes of pay raises or the like. Could you?
That's correct.
Talk about that?
There's approximately $5 million from the net operating fund left over that we'll be keeping in an account and watching, but we can't use those funds at this time. There's another sum of money, I believe isn't it $18 million that's over in an escrow account with a bank. We can't touch any of those funds now, but those funds have been dedicated by this board for the future when they are available for health care needs in the county.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just didn't want the public to be
I said $5 million. It might be closer. The other fund might be closer to $6 million.
It's 12 million.
One is 12.
12, and then but the first fund that we will get soon is like 6, isn't it?
Yeah. I just didn't want the public to be misled that those funds were available for use for sheriff's office cars and that sort of thing. That's just not the case.
But not
We pledged that to go to health care, and that's where.
And that's part of the agreement that we have with Duke Life Point, and when the purchase was made. Kurt,
Right.
do you want to?
All that's correct. I mean, I wasn't going to point out all the inaccuracies of the statements made yet because of, we want to have the hearing on Thursday and have other appropriate times, and I didn't want to start arguing with folks or making statements. But I would encourage those people that don't agree with the budget to review the budget online and actually come forth with the specific things they don't agree with, as opposed to you've got a lot of money and you're not spending it right. If they don't agree with it, then they should tell us why. I mean, I think we have always been open, and I know I have, to suggestions of how we utilize the money in the budget and what we do with it. And you know, yeah, it's a lot of money. It takes a lot of money to run this county. But if they will do that, that will be much more helpful than just getting up and trying to persuade others by using just broad statements of some fact into making people believe that the money's not being used accurately. I wrote down 3 things when we were talking about the budget, and I wasn't going to mention it. And sometimes in these meetings, when I get a little more emotional, it's better for me to just keep my mouth shut. But you know, it looks like to me our budget pretty much is designating money for our problems that we face, our people that we haven't paid and given raises in quite a while, and taking care of our property. And those are really the 3 primary things that we're focusing the actual tax increase on, are taking care of those areas. And I feel like that's what we're doing. And I told these folks, or the rest of the board, at the work session that we had earlier, I said, you know, the way that our employees are going to have a raise. I will not approve a budget where they do not get a raise because of the fact that they have been so diligent, they have been loyal to us to the best of their ability over the last 6 years, and it's time that we return that favor. And so I don't see any other way to get the money. If there's some other way to get the money, I'm sure Ira will find it. If there's some other way to get the money, I'm sure that our critics can disclose some way that can be done. And I'll be happy to do something else besides raise taxes, because every hike in a tax increase for us, I mean, for them, is for us too. And I was also curious about her statement about the fact that the property in the areas that we own, the commissioners own property, or the tax rates, or not the tax rates, but the way the valuations are in that area. Well, you know what? I own property in 6 or 7 different places in the county, at least different tax areas. And, you know, so I don't know how I could control that or how that could be controlled. It's unfortunate, but everyone should have the opportunity to speak And we have a public job, and we should take that criticism, and I don't mind doing that at all. But when folks come in and try to mislead others, that's a little disturbing. But unfortunately, that's the kind of country that we live in right now, and I'm getting used to it.
Mr. Chairman, just one comment, and Ira said it best. For 7 years, we've kicked the can down the road. There's nowhere to kick the can now. You know, we having to make decisions to fix things that maybe we needed to take a closer look at for 7 years, but we couldn't. So, and I was also thinking over the past weekend, we have over 500 employees. A lot of those, the taxes will go up. So even though they're getting a raise, they're gonna have to pay, more taxes.
Yeah. You have 500 county employees, most of them are married, that's 1,000 taxpayers, most of them have a child or two, they have parents, they go to church with friends and neighbors. I mean, it's the right thing to do, I think.
And I'm sorry I waited to make these statements now, but we do have a board meeting that starts at 5:30 and it continues, and we will end it. So I would rather have made these statements when the folks are here that earlier made the statements, but see, they leave. They don't stay to hear the rest of what we're talking about, or why we make decisions, or the nuts and bolts of these commission meetings. They take off and leave like they're gone now.
Yeah.
I just want to make a comment too. Macon and Jackson County's tax rate, they've got this community called Highlands and Cashiers, and there are multi-million-dollar homes in those communities, and it straddles the line kind of. Macon gets some of them, and Jackson gets some of them. And a lot of those homes are multi-million-dollar homes, part-time residents. That's why their rates are low. 40% of our county is owned by the federal government. 25% of it is in a park. And that's a good thing. I think it's good. But we don't have our whole county to get revenue from. And I'm sure there's some public lands in Jackson and Macon County, but we're a little bit handicapped. We also have 16 schools and now a charter school that we try to support. And those counties do not have the schools, the number of schools that we do. And that's why there's a difference.
Right.
Just in a nutshell.
Right.
I'm going to make a comment. This is the 5th budget I've been involved in, and every one of the things that we're talking about having to do increases, we've talked about for 5 years, trying to work it out and trying to, buy the necessary vehicles that needs to be bought, fix something that needs to be fixed, give the employees a raise or whatever, and we kept pushing it forward, thinking, things are going to get better, and we'll be able to do it. And what's happened now is that it's built up on us, and if you don't do it now, next year it compounds itself. And you've got an issue where, we talked about five police cars, you need 10 or 12 or 14 next year. Ambulances, or the roofs, so that's where we are. And it's not like this is just arbitrarily picked out of the air this year and decided we're going to do that. We've been working on this this will be 5 years.
If you look at the 45-year average or history of tax rates in Haywood County, they've been as high as $1.92. And now we're 55, 56 cents. So,
Mr. Chairman, I was looking up Manio's in Hyde County, and I believe I'm right. Their tax rate was 25 cents. And it was because of all the rentals and all that money coming in. So sometimes it's misleading when there is a low tax rate, like Kevin said.
Yeah, and I think you'll see some fluctuations this budget year in tax rates of some of our neighbors as well.
They're doing revals this year and next year. Jackson's doing one now, I believe, and Macon next year, vice versa. So they haven't done a reval since 07, 08. So, they've not kept up with it. And, it's going to be a big bite on them, I've already heard.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Okay, if there's nothing else, then we'll move to old business. We have an offer to purchase from the county property located at 50 Henson Drive, PIN number 8615693975, deed book 459, page 1800, at a purchase offer of $164,900. If approved, this would be subject to the upset bid procedure articulated, I believe, in General Statute 160A-269. So, having said that, I'll open it up. What do y'all think of the offer? We received one the other day for $135,000 and change.
It's been there quite a while, hasn't it, Ira?
Yes, the other offer that we had at 157 we'd accepted fell through, but we got a new one that's a little bit higher.
I don't have any problem with the offer. I mean, any offer that we accept is subject to that upset bid, so,
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a,
In my opinion, it's a very strong offer, very strong offer.
Yep. Okay.
you want me to move to?
What's your
approve it?
recommendation, Ira?
My recommendation is to take it
Okay.
and put the upset bid process out there again.
Okay.
I'll make that motion to move to approve that offer to purchase a contract for county-owned property, 50 Henson Drive, for the purchase price of $164,900.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. And again, note it is subject to the upset bid procedure. Okay, we'll move to new business. The first item is old item 2, request approval of the Articles of Association and Agreement for the Southwestern Workforce Development Consortium. Have Todd Douglas with us. Todd, welcome.
Thank you. I'm Todd Douglas. I'm the Workforce Development Director with the Southwestern Commission, and I'm here on behalf of the Commission this evening to request that the Haywood County Board of Commissioners ratify a new Articles of Association and Agreement for the Southwestern Workforce Development Consortium. And I had initially forwarded a lot of information to Mr. Dove, and probably more information than you wanted to look at, to be honest with you. But to give you a brief overview, and I want to make sure everyone understands what's occurring, is the current federal legislation that Region A operates its workforce development programs and services off of is called the Workforce Investment Act, and it is slated to expire on June 30th of this year. And since the beginning, all the way back to 1999, the 7 western counties in Region A, they initially banded together, signed a consortium where they agreed to receive and make use of all this grant money, that comes into the system. On July 1st, we're going to have new legislation, and that's the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, and it'll be the new federal legislation, and it'll require a new consortium agreement to be in effect at that time. This is Department of Labor grant money. It doesn't cost the county a thing. It'll come in from the Department of Labor to the governor. From there, it moves to Commerce, moves from Commerce to the local area, where we are the administrative and the fiduciary agent. We're really the pass-through on that. And this is really your tax money being brought home. So this evening, we're asking ratification of this new document. It's just going to require a signature.
Okay. Well, thank you. Any questions?
I just want to comment on this. I am the elected official, have been appointed
Chief
by the
elected
Southwest
official.
Commission to help with this. And this is just like a continuation of what we've been doing for the last 15 years. It's just a new name and a little bit of legislation that has changed, but and some new ideas and new ways to try to be better. So I'll make the recommendation.
Okay. All right. I understand our tape is about to expire, so I would entertain a motion that the Articles of Association and Agreement for the Southwestern Workforce Development Consortium be ratified. So moved. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Douglas.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, let's take about a 5-minute recess so the tape can be changed, and then we'll reconvene. Okay, we have returned from our recess. We will now move to the second item of new business, approval of a wedding fireworks display at the Laurel Ridge Country Club on June 13th. We have Johnny Glantz with us, our fire marshal.
Good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening, Johnny.
We have a request, as you said, for fireworks. North Carolina general statutes require the commissioners approve any pyrotechnic displays in the county. I do have Class A Services Incorporated. I do have all their liability insurance, all their licenses from the federal government and state. They are licensed through ATF and the Department of Insurance.
Okay, any questions on the wedding fireworks?
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, I've never, been doing this a long time, never seen this request.
That might be a pretty good crowd that shows up for the wedding.
Yeah, it's a large.
There's a lot of things you could say about wedding fireworks, but I think they're best left unsaid.
Well, they're going to start off with a bang.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion that the request of the Laurel Ridge Country Club for wedding fireworks on June 13th, 2015 be approved.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Johnny. Next up is Dale Burris with a request for approval of underground utility easement between Haywood County and the ERC broadband.
Good evening. I'll make this quick as possible. The ERC broadband has requested to install fiber optic cable. They've basically got it all the way up Branner Avenue. They want to come in front of the parking deck, all underground bore, go on the side of the parking deck where there's already an existing town of Waynesville easement for water and sewer, and come up in behind the Justice Center, and then of course at that point it'll all be run through mechanical rooms inside. So this is basically just like any other underground easement that the commissioners would have to approve for utilities, or overhead easement as far as that goes.
So you see no problems for the county in the future?
No, sir. Actually, I think this will be a benefit because there will be a actual underground duct that if there was a use, then it could possibly be used for county fiber if there was ever a need.
Okay. Any questions of Dale? If not, then we'd entertain a motion that the underground utility easement as described be approved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. That's unanimous. Any other business?
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment?
Certainly.
I want to commend you for what the budget that you're looking at. Maybe this ain't the proper time, you can stop me at any point, but I want to commend the commissioners for what was said about trying to raise some of the county employees up to a valuable increase, because as Mr. Kirkpatrick said, those lower paid employees, if the taxes go up, they're going to be paying the same thing. They're going to be paying more taxes, but they're actually going to get more per paycheck. So I think it's commendable to look at that. And is this the proper time? I'm not sure, but I just happen to be up here right now.
It's a free country.
Well, sometimes you don't know whether it is or not. So I really appreciate you giving me just a few minutes to be able to say that, because, while I know that repair of these buildings and that has been put off for so long because of the economy, and I completely understand that, it's going to cause myself additional work, but it's actually it's going to allow my staff to be able to do more without me being around, as I make it as appropriate as possible.
It does help morale. You're right.
Yes, sir. I agree with that statement 100%, and I appreciate it. And I know that this is a proposed budget. Completely understand that, but as a department director in one of the departments, it does have lower paid staff. I appreciate the commissioners and the county manager looking into this.
Well, thank you, Dale.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your comments. Okay, at this point, then, would entertain a motion to enter into closed session for personnel 143-318.11A6 and attorney-client privilege, general statute 143-318.11A3.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there additional business for the board? If not, we entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you.